when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring them into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. At this time, as the director mentioned, the National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. DC Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital. Madam Mayor?
Thank you. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and I, too, want to send my thoughts and prayers to the families of the guardsmen and to the guardsmen who are in critical condition in a local hospital. I am joined by members and leadership from the D.C. National Guard, from the West Virginia National Guard, United States Secret Service, Deputy Mayor Pia, Fire Chief Donnelly, and Metro's General Manager Randy Clark. And we join with the FBI Director in ensuring that MPD investigates, the U.S. Attorney prosecutes this case to the fullest extent of the law. I've had the opportunity to brief U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was speaking to the president when I called, as well as the United States Attorney Pirro, who assured me that this case will have her office's complete attention.
Mayor, was there any other suspect?
Chief.
Sure. So no, at this time there's no indication that there was any other suspect. The one suspect that was involved in this incident, they were shot during the interaction and they were transported to the hospital for treatment.
Mayor, does this validate the need for the National Guard here in D.C.?
What we know, Andrea, is that this is a targeted shooting. One individual who appeared to target these guardsmen, that individual has been taken into custody.
Mayor, can you tell us any more details on the condition of the two National Guardsmen and
Chief.
whether or not anyone else was injured? And a quick question follow-up for the FBI Director. You said that we'll make sure we find the perpetrators for this act. So just to clarify, the person believed to be responsible is in custody and there are no other suspects?
Sure, so I can start out. Again, Chief Carroll from MPD. So both of the individuals, the Guard members, they are in critical condition in a local hospital at this time being treated. At this point, we have no other suspects. We have reviewed video from the area. It appears, like I said, to be a lone gunman that raised a firearm and ambushed these members of the National Guard, and he was quickly taken into custody by other National Guard members and law enforcement members.
Have you got any sense of motive?
No, at this time, obviously, we're very in the preliminary stages of investigation. There's a lot of things, a lot of agents that are here from various federal agencies, law enforcement agencies. We have the full power of the FBI and our federal partners here in the task force, so we're looking at all those different aspects, but we don't have any motive. The National Guardsmen that were shot, I'm told they were armed.
Did they get off shots?
At this time, that's part of the preliminary investigation.
Can you explain how the suspect was apprehended?
Chief.
Sure. So how the suspect was apprehended, as I said, the individual, the suspect came around the corner. He immediately started firing a firearm at the two National Guard members. So at that time, there were other National Guard members that were in the area. They heard the gunfire. They actually were able to intervene and to kind of hold down the suspect after he had been shot on the ground until law enforcement got there within moments.
And he was shot by a National Guard?
At this point, we're still investigating exactly who shot the individual. It's not clear at this time.
Were there DC policemen in the area?
We don't know what kind of weapon. There was DC police. It happened right in front of the Metro, although there is no indication that the perpetrator was on the Metro. So there's Metro Transit Police in the area, and obviously being on 17th Street by the White House, Uniform Division of Secret Service were in the immediate area as well.
What kind of weapon the alleged perpetrator used?
We do not know at this time. It's still under
Thank you,
investigation.
Andrea. We're going to be able to take a couple more.
Has been able to question the suspect, or is his condition so severe that you haven't been able to have a conversation?
Sure. Again, so as I said, we're very preliminary in the investigation, so we're looking into all aspects of who the individual is, his connections. At this time, he's still in the hospital receiving treatment.
And I would just like to add, the reason that this suspect is in custody is because of the bravery of the men and women of the National Guard who responded due to their extensive training to secure American lives today there was not any further injury and any further shootings. We should highlight the fact that the men and women of law enforcement, the interagency, the Department of War, and the National Guard executed their training with great precision today and prevented an even greater tragedy from befalling us. These National Guardsmen are heroes, and we must pray for their safety and their speedy recovery. And as the chief said, we are in the preliminary stages of this investigation. We will run down every single lead, every piece of evidence. This is the power of the U.S. government at its best at the state, local, and federal level. That is why this interagency group is standing behind us to assure America and the world that we will continue to keep D.C. safe. And thankfully, we have Metropolitan Police Department, the National Guardsmen, and federal agents, and the Department of Justice and Attorney General willing to prosecute the mission to keep Americans safe. And President Trump has rightly stated that this heinous act will be investigated, and he has thanked the National Guardsmen and women and the men and women of law enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get notified?
Did the suspect say anything at the time?
Why did the West Virginia governor say that they've been killed? Chief, was anyone else shot besides the two?
Have the families been notified?
General, what about the unconstitutional deployment of troops? It's been ruled unconstitutional. Why are there 500 more troops?
We'll let them all get their camera, their mics.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, where they can take them on.
That box, that gray box that you had.
And the corridor.
No, Korak.
Bowser, I see there, and others right there, and the police, Jeffrey Carroll, the assistant chief over at Metropolitan Police Department, I believe, again, this is a targeted attack. But I mean, the positive news is that they say that both people are in critical condition. It's unclear why about an hour or so ago, the West Virginia governor originally posted that they were dead. Then the West Virginia governor walked that back and said it was unclear.
Okay, great. And I'm realizing now, Victoria, that I also didn't mention
Let's hope they are alive.
that there were about 10 to 15 shots that rang out before enlistment with suspects. So if you want me to mention that on the top, I can.
But they are both in critical condition. That's what we just heard. Who is this suspect? We have no idea. They haven't said anything about that publicly. And the West Virginia governor still has not deleted his original post saying they were both killed. Yet he also has a post he posted after that saying there are now conflicting reports about their condition. The two soldiers of the National Guard, the two members of the National Guard, were performing high visibility patrols.
2 National Guard members shot this afternoon less than a mile from the White House, and we now can report they have died. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey announcing the news on X, writing in part, "It is with great sorrow that we can confirm both members of the West Virginia National Guard who were shot earlier today in Washington, D.C. have passed away from their injuries. These brave West Virginians lost their lives in service of their country." President Trump condemning the act, writing on Truth Social, "The animal that shot the 2 National Guardsmen is also severely wounded, but regardless will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you." D.C. police confirming that a suspect is in custody. The president is now in Florida at his Mar-a-Lago estate, while the White House is in lockdown. And FBI Director Kash Patel says the FBI is engaged in assisting with the investigation. Fox News correspondent Mark Meredith is on the scene, and he joins us now. Mark, what's the update?
Joey, good afternoon. A tragedy unfolding right here on the streets of D.C., as you mentioned, just a few blocks away from the White House. The latest news coming from the governor of West Virginia, the commander-in-chief of the West Virginia National Guard, confirming that 2 of his service members have been killed on the streets of Washington, D.C. This attack happening a few minutes before 3 p.m. this afternoon outside of the Farragut West Metro Station. That's one of the more popular stations here in D.C., 3 different train lines that run through. This was also an attack that appeared to happen just outside of the station. I was hearing from a source who had a good vantage point from this, where you could see that those service members were simply right outside of a bus station. It was like a glass enclosure in addition to where the actual train station is, and that's where it appears those gunshots occurred. The suspect also in custody. No update yet on his condition, but you can imagine here the tremendous loss that the entire city of D.C. as well as our neighbors in West Virginia are also facing right now. Where this attack occurred is also very important because of the symbolic of it. We're just so close to the White House. The National Guard deployments have been a huge moment for the Trump administration. They've made it their mission to try to clean up the crime in D.C., and there's been a lot of political controversy, Joey, with that decision. But these troops have been out on the streets now for several months, and in addition to that, we have seen them come and go from different states, different deployments that have sent their troops. I live in D.C., and I've seen them even as recently as Sunday evening. I even thanked them as I was going back to my house to say thank you for your service, because it is a thankless job, and so many of these National Guards members have been out there on a holiday weekend, nights, weekends away from their families. And there had been some criticism from some that they felt that this wasn't an accurate deployment, but these people were obviously targeted here, and there's an indication that this was somebody that wanted to send a message. That we know that the president, vice president, all top levels of the government have been responding to this in real time. And while it is a holiday weekend, Joey, I've seen a number of law enforcement agencies, ATF, FBI, Secret Service, DC Police, Metro Transit Police, you name them, they've been out here trying to respond to this. We are expecting an update from DC Police within the next few minutes or so. Mayor Bowser, our DC's Democratic mayor, who just announced yesterday she's not even going to seek another term, would also likely have plenty to say about this, because this is going to have repercussions all across not only the district but around the country. In fact, I'm struck by how much this is already becoming an international story, because we are only a block away from the White House. You've got international media out here that are also trying to piece together exactly what happened. Vice President Vance already addressing the situation while he was in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I would imagine the president will have more to say on this. I don't think he has any public events on his schedule today, but he's been active on Truth Social. I also heard from somebody who was on the ground that Kash Patel, the FBI director, had also stopped by. I did not see that with my own eyes, but I would imagine at any news conference he would make his presence known as well. Joey?
Yeah, Mark, you're there on the ground. I just heard you say that you feel like this is seems to be very targeted, and someone might have been trying to send a message. Have you spoken to people on the ground, witnesses, or someone involved that has confirmed that? Is that a hunch? Where are you coming from with that?
No, absolutely. We are still waiting for the official word to come from D.C., but given that we're hearing from the top law enforcement officials as well as the president himself, if it were to be just a random D.C. street crime, I'm not sure we would see necessarily such a staunch response for there. In terms of witnesses, yes, I have spoken to witnesses who came out here after they saw the aftermath of it, people that basically saw people running away from the scene. These people were curious as to, Joey, what was happening in real time. Yes, the official motive, what that'll be up to law enforcement to announce. But you have to, of course, take into consideration of where we are standing 2 blocks away from the White House, who these people were. They were in their uniform. I saw from a source, from a photo that was sent to me, that these people absolutely had their uniform on, and on the back of one of the victims had the National Guard in big white lettering and a black sign. So these people absolutely would have stood out. They weren't plain clothes. These people were certainly known to make their presence here. I would imagine at some point we're going to be seeing, Joey, a lot of reflection about what their mission was, what can be done to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. And you're right, Joey, motive, a huge part of the equation at this point. We'll wait for D.C. Police to give us the final word on that on this Thanksgiving Eve. Joey?
Absolutely, yeah. We look forward to that press conference, hopefully within the next few minutes. Mark, thanks for being there and stay safe. All right, we're going to bring in Paul Morrow now, Fox News contributor, retired NYPD inspector. Paul, thanks for staying on with us. I know you've been on already today. You just heard Mark's report there. He kind of went so far as to say he believes this was targeted and maybe even sending a message, not necessarily assigning a motive, but saying it's kind of almost impossible not to be. What's your take, and are you hearing anything?
So let's try to advance the story a little bit at this point. Obviously, as you said, the atmospheric seemed to be something that was message driven. Why does that matter? Because if law enforcement does determine that, and that's, I'm sure, why the FBI is heavily involved here, aside from the fact that all of Washington is federal jurisdiction, then what's going to happen is the FBI is going to take the case over, and this is going to go into the terrorism realm. This is a little different from the terrorism charges you normally see. Why? Because it's on federal grounds. Well, all of Washington is federal. And what that does is admit certain federal charges that have the T word, terrorism, in it. If you can establish that motive. What is the motive? To either intimidate or influence a civilian population or to move the policy of the government. So now, by now, I am sure that they have identified the shooter, and they are going to be scraping backwards here. First of all, to make sure, did he act alone? And then to see what is the motive and where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We're looking at something that's happened so close to the White House. We've got National Guard there. I actually got a text from someone involved in the Secret Service that apparently responded really quickly and was a part of that. So obviously that shows just how close to the White House it was. It's not lost on me. It's the day before Thanksgiving. I was sitting here last New Year's Day hosting Fox and Friends, seeing an attack on people in New Orleans. How much of a heightened awareness do we have going into a holiday with so much traffic and confusion and opportunity for people to slip through the cracks, I guess?
Yeah, it's a good point. And you know what? It does happen. It seems like every year in New York, we've had a number of these. They don't, thankfully, rise to this level, but you do get threats around the holidays very, very often. And it's just one of these things that it's an emotional time of the year. It seems to set people off. But also the cities are flooded with people who do things that are, of course, part of our American tradition. Come in to see the tree, come in to see the lights, to do the shopping. And unfortunately, that makes for a target-rich environment. So we would always get, doing counterterrorism here in New York for years, we would always get threats around the holidays, things that were related to the holidays, things that were related to holiday events. And at this point, look, we don't know for sure. But the fact that this happens within the penumbra of the holidays, that also feels